So I'll take 5 minutes to 10 minutes to summarize what we learned in the last class, that is on learning and memory, right? So why have I put this? How many of you agree with this? That you cannot remember anything that you don't pay attention to. So memory is very closely related to attention, right? And there is a strong amount of evidence which says so. Whenever we are paying attention to any particular task or any, if you're listening attentively, then also. So you are directing the flow of information to the frontal lobe, and which in turn causes a silencing effect on the other areas of the brain. The brain में जो बाकी neural noise है, that is silenced when we pay or focus attention to any particular thing. It may be a task, it may be a piece of information. So unless that happens, encoding will not be strong. तो पिछले क्लास में try to remember explicit memory के जो processing steps थे, encoding, consolidation, storage and retrieval. So encoding part gets affected by attention. The more attentive you are, you encode it nicely, you encode it stronger, right? Consolidation happens in the hippocampus, second step. Major effect of attention is in the first step only. So this is the rate limiting step. That's why same things when you are studying right before the exams, you remember better. वही चीज़ें जब क्लास में हो रही है, you're not, because you're not paying attention, you're not listening nicely, you don't retain what has happened, what was taught after the class. But same things if you study in front of, just before the exams, because you are very much focused on passing the exam, you are giving full attention, you remember better. Although that if that is not repeated on a regular basis, that will still be very short-lived. So ये भी एक सच्चाई है. If you do not keep on repeating it, that memory will also be short-term. Okay. Now moving on to, we talked about in implicit memory, there are various types. Procedural, that is learning of motor skills and processes. Priming and perceptual, I give some examples, red, green and blue, doctor and patient. So you can predict some responses. So priming and perceptual is this, the brain tries to predict what is next based on some patterns that it identifies. Okay. Associative and the non-associative, the last two topics that we discussed towards the end. So associative learning, may you see that the word association is there. So there is association between two stimuli or a stimuli and a response. And both of this has to be temporally paired. That's the same stimulus. If you are giving two stimulus, तो उसका जो sequence है, sequence of the stimulus is important. If you change the sequence, the response will not be same. Learning will not happen. You remember the example of the Pavlovian dog. So unconditioned stimulus and conditioned stimulus. Whenever there is a sight or smell of food, so this is a neutral stimulus which will always trigger salivation. This does not require any type of conditioning. Neutral. Sight or smell of food will produce salivation as per the cephalic phase of salivary or gastric secretion for that matter. Now this is paired with one more stimulus. So this is temporal pairing. Before the unconditioned stimulus, here now we are giving one ringing of a bell. We are pairing this in time. This is called temporal pairing. So now after a period of time, what happens is, बार-बार जब this thing is reinforced, so the ringing of the bell produces salivation. So इस condition में the salivation has become a conditioned response. So initially it was a unconditioned response happening to sight or smell of food. But after the learning has happened, associative learning, brain has formed an association by the sequence of events से brain में एक association बना. So now this is producing the same response, but this response becomes conditioned response because it is happening to the conditioned stimuli. Right? A similar example we discussed. Now operant conditioning is another form of conditioning that is there. So here learning happens by consequence of behavior, right? So if you score good marks in your exam, if you put effort, so this is one type of activity that you are doing. Consequence uska ye hua ki you have scored good in exams. Now you will have, this is what normal people do, कि marks अगर अच्छा आते हैं तो दोबारा जाके पढ़ते हैं. So I cannot generalize it for you all or for Gen Z. So I am still trying to learn the ways of Gen Z. So this relation or association between an event and its consequence, this is called as operant or instrumental conditioning. So reward conditioning is an example of this. Class में अगर punishment दिया जाए, so that is one negative reinforcement, aversive conditioning. So that particular behavior will not be repeated. ये भी normal लोगों में होता है कि if a punishment is given, usually that behavior is not repeated. The classical experiments on which it was understood was in Skinner's box. So whenever the rat or the mouse had an option, if you randomly, whenever it pressed the lever, right, either a food pellet was delivered or an electric shock was given. Now this was controlled by the experimentally controlled. The scientists studying it, they controlled when a food was delivered and when a shock was given. But either of these two will happen whenever the lever was pressed. So it was seen that whenever a food pellet appeared, so of course the rat ate it, it felt nice, this was a reward. Now this behavior is repeated again and again. So this is an example of positive reinforcement. Similarly, when on once pressing the lever there is an electric shock, so this behavior will not be repeated. So this is negative reinforcement or aversion towards the initial behavior, right? So this is just one set of experiments. Similar various experiments are done on rat, and these conclusions were drawn. Some examples of daily life. So you can add a pleasant stimulus as a positive reinforcement, right? So the behavior will be reinforced. You can remove a pleasant stimulus. So ये होता है. This is what I feel when I am taking your class. Most of the time, everyone is on mobile. So if you remove the mobile, this again, generally expected that behavior will not be repeated, right? Or you can add a negative or a punishment by itself. So you can remove a pleasant stimulus or add an unpleasant or aversive stimulus. So these are various examples of operant conditioning. Right? So we've already talked about this, I'll not repeat. The non-associative may, this type of associations are not formed, but it is a general property of synapses. So habituation or sensitization के बारे में we have talked about in the class on synapses. So this again is a classical set of experiments done on a snail, Aplysia. And what was seen is when the siphon was touched, there is a withdrawal of the gill, right? Similarly, when a painful stimulus was given on the tail, again a withdrawal was observed. So this is the gill withdrawal response. So whenever either the siphon is touched or when a painful stimulus is applied on the tail or mantle shelf, this withdrawal response is observed. Now what happens if at a low intensity you keep on doing the same? So the response eventually becomes less, right? So this is an example of habituation. But important thing to remember here, understand here is, this is not due to fatigue, right? Fatigue ka hona, it is not due to, in fatigue we talk of depletion of the neurotransmitters at the junctions. But this is not that. Yet this is a very important defining thing about habituation. So this is happening in the synapses, but not due to fatigue. इसी condition में, if a new type of stimulus is given, suppose a painful stimulus somewhere else, the response of gill withdrawal will again be seen. So familiar stimuli, if it is given repeatedly, the response reduces. However, a novel stimulus is able to excite the same response. Right? Fatigue even if you give a new stimulus, this will not happen. Right? So this is an example of habituation. So does habituation happen in a day-to-day life? So every teacher that comes tells you to studies, but you have become habituated. You don't want to study, your response is going down and down. Nahi padenge. Right? This is an example. When you start sleeping, suppose if you have a watch or a clock, initially you can hear the ticking of the clock, but at some point, agar wo continuously aapko sunai deta, you wouldn't have been able to fall asleep. But at some point, the brain stops responding to the stimulus. This is also an example of habituation. Basis of habituation is synaptic inhibition. The same examples we have talked about in the class on synapses. I've just put the same pictures. The synaptic inhibition can happen presynaptically, right? Main synapse is this. So before here, presynaptic neuron has been inhibited by one extra neuron, or in the postsynaptic neuron itself. The opposite is sensitization. Now, sensitization mein the response becomes increased or enhanced, right? And usually it is after exposure to a painful stimulus. So, isi experiment mein what has happened is, when the painful stimulus was delivered on the tail of the siphon, right, followed by a non-painful stimulus being delivered at the same point, response was even more, right? So, organism became sensitized to the stimulus, right? So, both of these are examples of non-associative learning. So, from this point, let us move on to the applied aspects of learning and memory. So, there are this one disease that you should not forget in this topic is Alzheimer's disease, right? So, this is a form of dementia. Dementia means there is a global loss of cognitive functions. Cognitive functions, whenever we talk of learning, memory, right? Intelligence, rationalization, logic, right? Thinking, all of this. So, gradually this becomes less. And as the disease progresses, other features also develop. Emotional disturbances also develop as the disease progresses. So, Alzheimer's is one of the leading causes of dementia, and the sad thing about this disease, it is a neurodegenerative disorder. Neurons degenerate and there is hardly anything you can do about it, right? So, initial presentations appear like loss of episodic memory, right? So, recent events are not remembered, right? Loss of short-term memory follows, and towards the end, all functions get affected. Along with that, emotional disturbances like depression, agitated behavior also appear. Classical hallmarks of Alzheimer's are 3, right? So, let us see this picture. So, if you can compare, so this hemisphere that is shown on this side of the screen, it is the normal condition, and on the right side of the screen that you see, this is what happens when the brain gets affected by Alzheimer's. So, the first change that happens is intracellular change within the neurons. So, there is a protein within the neurons, the tau protein. In Alzheimer's, that becomes hyperphosphorylated and it forms intracellular aggregates. So, within the neuron, this is happening. So, within the dendrites, eventually, this intracellular deposits of hyperphosphorylated tau protein, they form tangles like this. These are called as neurofibrillary tangles. This is one change that happens. Second thing that happens is extracellular. Within the interstitium of the brain, amyloid beta plaque deposits happen, right? So this is the second thing. So plaques are formed, amyloid beta plaques is this. Third thing that also accompanies this is activation of the glial cells as a part of the body's immune response to this, right? So there is reactive glial cells. Reactive ka matlab hai it is in reaction to this changes that are happening. So neurons cannot be normally present with all this type of restraints. So this restraint from within the cell, it is trying to distort the structure of the neuron, right? And if the structure of the neuron itself is distorted, within the neuron the transport ho raha hai from the cell body to the axon terminal, anterograde or retrograde, all forms of transport, all forms of transmitter synthesis, all these processes get affected, right? And what you also see is the brain size becomes small. So this is called as senile cerebral atrophy. So these are the three things which happen in Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's you might get as a short note in your exams. You have a section on applied topics. Amnesia. Amnesia means loss of memory. So you must have seen in daily soaps and shows what this show is, in cinemas also for that matter. There is a traumatic event somewhere, right? तो हादसे के बाद अगले सीन में they are in the hospital bed, right? They wake up by themselves. We went without ICU and all. They wake up. They are in coma. Then they get up from coma and then the first question is मैं कौन हूँ, right? Usually it does not happen like that, right? So amnesia does not present like this. So amnesia means whenever there is an event, maybe trauma, maybe something else, triggering event may, whenever this happens, it is the process of encoding generally and consolidation that gets affected. So if the trauma affects somehow the hippocampus and its associated structure, the entire hippocampal formation, not only just the hippocampus, anywhere around that, if there is a stimulus, if there is a triggering event like this, there will be loss of this encoding and consolidation. So new events will not be encoded and will not be committed to your memory. So this is called as anterograde amnesia, right? And trauma ke time, whatever events were in the process of encoding and consolidation, that also will not be committed. तो ये मैंने आपको पिछले क्लास में बताया था that we need around 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes for the process of consolidation to happen. Without consolidation, it will not be committed to your longer forms of memory. So trauma के ठीक पहले, say not 10 minutes, you take a liberal margin of 15-20 minutes, half an hour. So those events जो already हो चुके थे, but they were in the process of encoding and consolidation, they will also not be remembered. If this happens, this is called as retrograde amnesia, right? So amnesia may, it does not happen that, as you can see, past memories are preserved. It is exceptionally rare that you forget your name and kahan pe ho. All these things are absolute fictional things. This is not how amnesia presents, right? How many of you remember this movie? Have you seen this? देखा सब लोगों ने है, but so what type of amnesia is it? Retrograde? Think and answer. Retrograde. Why was he continuously writing things on his body? Amnesia, see, as I said in the last slide just now, long-term memories are not affected in 99% of the cases. It is very rare. Even in Alzheimer's, the core long-term memories are the last ones to be affected. Right? So triggering events like this, it is the short-term memories which are going to be affected. So dono anterograde and retrograde, in one way it is involving your short-term memories only. तो यहाँ पे इस पर्टिकुलर मूवी में क्या दिखाया गया था? व्हाट वाज द एमनेसिया शोन? He was not able to remember new things, right? So it was a scenario of anterograde amnesia. New things were not being able to remember. He kept on inscribing here and there. So anterograde amnesia, right? Do you guys have any form of amnesia? So and that is happening without trauma. You're not able to commit anything to your memory. तो कहाँ पे है? She is confused, right? So again, anterograde memory in process. चलो, we'll talk about vision now from an exam point of view. So you are often asked about differences between explicit and implicit memory, right? This is one important question. Differences between associative and non-associative learning and neural processing of your explicit memory. The तीन चीज़ें important है इसमें, right? Classification, if you are asked, if you remember that table, remember 2 flow charts and you will be done with most of the. So this is one form of classification. But it also tells you which are the areas concerned with this. It is a very important flowchart from this topic. This picture, if you are able to write it, if asked, you will get very good marks. But again, it is a very difficult thing to understand. Okay. Long-term potentiation, short-term में पूछा जाता है. Long-term potentiation, right? This one and these 2 things. We talked about this process in details. This acts as a short note. Okay. Synaptic plasticity is a short note. Okay. Classification, semantic and episodic. Right. This is the classification for explicit memory. So 2 flowcharts. One flowchart. It is there in your book also. One for classifying explicit and one for classifying implicit. Beauty of this flowchart is it tells you the sites or the biological areas where this particular memory is attributed to. So last topic in unit rather is special senses, right? And as all special things are reserved for the last, so special senses are also one of the last topics that we will be learning, right? So what comes to your mind? Thank you. I accept the compliment. Chalo, so the point I'm making here is we always start with the eyes. Special sense always we start with the eyes. जैसे इन्होंने अभी शेयर किया तो इसमें इतने गाने बन चुके हैं, गज़लें बन चुकी हैं, right? So I am here to take away the romance out of the eyes, right? So we'll talk about all of this, right? In the coming slides we'll see, but structure, functions of the eyes and appendages, lens and cornea, tear, right? This is something very close to us, and aqueous humor, more water. So tear is also a form of water, aqueous humor also watery. So let's first recapitulate some basic things. So what is a receptor? Receptor is a transducer, right? It can convert different forms of energy into electrical forms or action potentials. So in context of the vision, the receptors convert photons to action potentials, right? Second is, how does a sensation reach the brain? If you're asked, any sensation, कैसे पहुंचता है brain तक? There are sensory tracts or ascending tracts, right? So you have read about all of this. Now, all these sensations, when they reach our brain, the cerebral cortex, we tell that it has contributed to our conscious awareness or perception of that particular sensation, right? But all these tracts, they also give some collateral branches below the cortex, mostly to structures around the reticular formation. तो सेंसरी ट्रैक्ट्स में दोनों फंक्शंस हैं, स्पेसिफिक सेंसेशंस को समझाना एंड सबकॉन्शियस रोल्स, राइट, लाइक मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट अमंग देम बीइंग state of wakefulness or alertness, reticular formation. Okay. Now what are the 5 special senses? Taste and कितने हो गए? Smell, vision, touch, taste and hearing. तो बंद ही कर रखा है देखो, hearing. So now, do you all agree with what she answered? Server is amused. बताओ. Retrograde. If you're again stuck, that was the first point of the slide. If you're not paying attention, nothing will go into memory. So is it a correct list of the special senses? All of you agree? कि special sense यही 5 हैं? There is a 6th sense. तो 5 सही है या नहीं, जो 5 इन्होंने बताए हैं? What is special about touch? Touch pathway already you have read, right? Fine touch and crude touch you have read. Fine touch is carried by the dorsal column pathway, crude touch by anterolateral or the anterior spinothalamic tract. Is it special? Biologically, touch is not special. Emotionally can be, right? So 5th sense is actually not touch. It is the sense of balance or equilibrium. तो ये एक common misconception है. We have hammered this concept from our school days that there are 5 senses, right? तो स्कूल में जो पढ़ाया जाता है that is 5 senses, not special senses. 5th special sense is the sense of equilibrium or balance. Okay. Now next thing is, why is it special? Let us know why. So these are the 5 senses. You all know. Tactile sensations, touch, and all other sensations where tactile receptors are involved. These are general senses, right? General senses and special senses में जो basic difference है, it is that general senses can be conveyed from all parts of the body. Receptors are present all over the body. Think about pain, think about temperature, touch. Throughout the body receptors are present. But special sense के जो receptors हैं, they are present in and around the head. They are not present throughout the body. This is one reason why these are unique, right? Second and the more unique point is this. Most of the special senses, they add an aesthetic dimension to our lives, right? How do I say aesthetic? तो aesthetic का भी जो interpretation है वो बदल गया. पहले जो pictures blurred आते थे, हम उनको कहते थे कि this is a bad picture, bad photograph. So nowadays when I open social media, people are praising the blurred ones, right? These are considered aesthetic now. So जो समझ में ना आए वो aesthetic है, right? चलो, तो color is an example where color makes our lives beautiful, right? All of you agree? So color is actually not a physical entity. A physical entity is its wavelength. There are various light rays of various wavelengths. Color का जो sensation है, that is formed within our brain because of the ways the receptors interact and convey it. Right? So color by itself, it is not a physical thing. So this is an aesthetic dimension that this particular sensory pathway, the visual pathway, is giving us. Similarly, melody. तो melody का भी वैसा ही हाल है. Nowadays, if everything is out of tune, out of pitch, out of frequency, तो सोशल मीडिया की जनता उसको मानती है अच्छी है, दिस इज अ गुड सॉन्ग और मेलोडियस पीस. हमारे ज़माने में the things were different, perceptions are different. Melody is also a construct, just like color. It is a construct. It is not a thing by itself. Hearing जब हम discuss करेंगे, you will see that it is a combined construct from loudness, from pitch and from phase, right? तो तीनों चीज़ का, and of course the timbre of the voice, तो तीन चार चीज़ का construct बनता है melody. So this is again one important thing which our hearing apparatus is giving us. So general sensations में these things are not possible. Aesthetic dimensions are possible only in special senses. That's why they are called as special. Let's start with the sixth sense before I start. So Madhurima was mentioning about the sixth sense. Is there a sixth sense? What do you think? Intuition. So is this a sensation? Intuition is what? Keenness of observation. If you observe anything keenly, your brain can predict certain things. Again, and that also is on the basis of patterns, right? So it is not a sensation. It is just observation. Then we'll start with vision now. So before I start with the structure, what are the important features? All special senses will start with the special features. So this is a pathway where you cannot touch the stimulus, right? Stimulus is intangible and it is acting from a distance. So photoreceptors are also examples of teleceptors. Receptors which detect the stimulus, not acting physically on it but from a distance. You see the variation in the range of stimulus that can be detected. From darkness to bright sunlight, intensity variation of 10 billion units can be appreciated. This is a very high range, enormous range of intensity that can be detected by a sensory system. This is again a very interesting thing. Abhi tak, till now, what you have learnt is all forms of signal transduction, signaling in the body starts with a depolarization, right? Local potentials दो तरीके के हैं. One is a positive one, depolarizing local potential, cat electrotonus, or a hyperpolarizing, anelectrotonus. If the local potential, which is a depolarizing one, if it somehow reaches the threshold, we get a full-fledged action potential. This is a general rule. This is an exception of that. So this is a sensory modality where signal transduction starts with hyperpolarization and not depolarization. Okay. Synaptic convergence and divergence. How many of you remember it? In synapses, we talked about if there are multiple synapses feeding into one postsynaptic neuron, convergence. And if the opposite happens, this is divergence. So this is one pathway where we have both convergence and divergence in the same pathway. You see again, initial stages of signal, conveying the signal is not by action potential as in other places of the body. Initial phases is by electrotonic mechanism, that is by local spread. So these are all unique features. And the last unique thing is duplicity theory. This theory states that, and we'll see in the subsequent classes, that illumination, depending on the amount of light available, there are two separate modes of neural processing, right? Photopic vision in bright illumination and scotopic vision when the illumination is less. So these are features which make the sense of vision unique. Let us go to the structure. Did you cover the structure in anatomy yet? Eye? Not yet? Okay, so eye has three basic ports, right? And the bony cavity where it is present, it is called as the orbit. Orbit you have read already. Right. Okay. The eyeball is globe shaped, so all of you understand this. The diameter is approximately 24 millimeters. Now the diameter becomes important when we discuss optics. If the diameter is lesser, there will be some type of refractive error, and even if it is more than normal, again there will be some type of refractive error. Now, what are the functions of the appendages and what are the appendages of the eye? Eyelids, eyebrows, conjunctiva and the lacrimal apparatus. These are described as the appendages of the eye, mostly associated with protective function. So, let us see the coats of the eye. So, this picture is there in all the books. Just try to understand the structures. So, from outside, we have a fibrous coat. This is called as the sclera, right? Sclera. And in the anterior aspect, it is modified to form the cornea. So, this is the outer fibrous coat. The inner middle one that you see here in light green color, this is the middle vascular coat. So, vascular coat ka matlab hai it is having blood supply, right? So, blood supply. So, nutrition purposes of all the structures majorly comes from this particular layer by diffusion. And the inner coat, it is the neural layer or the nervous coat. So, this is where the retina is present. Right? Now, if I go into the further details, so I covered about the sclera or the white part of the eye, but anterior 1/6 of this whole circumference, the anterior 1/6, it is transparent and that is called as the cornea. Junction of the sclera and cornea is called as the limbus. And in around the limbus we have a small plexus of blood vessels, the perilimbal plexus of vessels. The middle coat you see here, it is modified into two parts again. The structures for most part of the eyeball, it is called as the choroid vascular coat. Anteriorly, it is modified further into some structures called as the iris and then the ciliary body, right? So, let us go into a bit of details. So, iris and ciliary body, functionally they are not together. To some extent there is no overlap, but they are distinct structures. Okay. What else? Let me just go back again. So, this is the modification which I am calling as the iris, right? So, here we have the ciliary body. Ciliary body is this part which further has modifications into a ciliary muscle and lot of ciliary processes, right? Ciliary muscle is a muscle present circumferentially around the eye. It is a smooth muscle supplied by parasympathetic nerves. Ciliary processes are present over here which are concerned with secretion of watery fluid we call as the aqueous humor. Now, this structure is the lens and the lens of the eye is a biconvex lens. The lens is held in its place by suspensory ligaments also called as zonules, which in turn are connected to the ciliary muscles. The ciliary muscles, zonules and the lens has a very unique relationship. So, we will see in the coming slides. The lens divides the entire eyeball into two broad segments, right? Anterior segment and posterior segment. Anterior segment is further divided by the iris into two parts, anterior chamber and posterior chamber. So, cornea और iris के बीच में जो area that is anterior chamber, iris and lens के बीच में जो area that is posterior chamber. And the opening through which these chambers communicate, that means the aperture which you can see in all of your eyes, this is the pupil of the eye. Okay. Now, this is filled with the watery fluid aqueous humor. The posterior segment, also called as the vitreous cavity, it is filled with a jelly-like or gelatinous substance called as the vitreous humor. Now, moving towards the posterior pole, retina mein, the part where the optic nerve leaves the eye, it is called as the optic disc, right? And it is through the same structure, you will see the blood vessels and its branches emerge out into the vitreous cavity, right? Okay, now let's move on. So, importance kya hai? So, I said that the second coat is highly vascular, it is not only highly vascular, it is also densely innervated with nerves by branches of the trigeminal nerve. So whenever there is an inflammation of the middle coat, uveitis कहते हैं इसे, right? It is a very painful condition because first reason is if there are a lot of blood vessels, so inflammation के साथ जो edema होता है that is more, and edema will have, edema actually means what? There is collection of some amount of fluid, but the coat is actually sandwiched between the outer and the inner coat, middle coat. So जगह कम है, so there is more edema because of high vascularity. Right? This is one reason why it is painful. High vascularity also, on a different note, it also makes the process of healing faster. If blood supply is more immunoglobulins, more WBCs can reach. That is also true, but painful to higher condition. And the second reason is it is a highly innervated structure. So pain fibers are more. So that's why uveitis is a very painful condition. This is a common give reason from this topic. Why is uveitis a painful condition? Okay. So why did I put this picture again? So when we were growing up, this was a very common ad in the television. Right? She became ambassador for promoting eye donation because she had very unique eyes, right? The color of the eyes are different. So when we refer to this color of the eyes, what exactly are you referring to? You're referring to iris, the color of the iris. So common language mein that we refer to as the color of the eyes, actually the pigments of the iris which is responsible for the color. So कौन से pigments हैं? This is melanin and some of its derivatives, but there are actually layers of cells within the iris. And depending on the pigment that is there, there is something you read in physics called as Tyndall scattering effect. You might have read. So that explains the color of the eyes. So वो उतना depth में नहीं जाएंगे. But remember this, the color comes from this. We'll go to the muscles of the iris. So there are two important muscles. One is a circular muscle and one is a radial muscle. Right? Let me show you the picture first. So this is the circular muscle called as the constrictor pupillae, right? This is supplied by parasympathetic fibers carried by the oculomotor nerve. And the ones that you see, these are the radial muscles, dilator pupillae. These are supplied by the sympathetic nerves from the superior cervical ganglion. Now what happens when each of these muscles contract? Normally there is a state of balance which is maintained between both of this. Now if a muscle contracts, you have read about this earlier in your muscle physiology classes. Whenever a muscle contracts, the muscle shortens in length. The general rule for muscle contraction. So if the radial muscle contracts, you compare the length of this muscle and then one in normal conditions. So this becomes small because the muscle is contracting. Now if the muscle becomes small, what happens to the opening? This becomes larger. This is actually not a structure. This is just a opening where the structure of iris is absent. So iris is pulled like this because this muscle becomes short and leading to an increase in the diameter of pupil. This is called as dilatation of the pupil. The sympathetic stimulation causes dilatation of pupil. Opposite happens here. So this is the constrictor pupillae muscle. Clearly it has become smaller in size than it was present here. And what has it caused? Diameter has lessened. This is called as constriction of the pupil. Happens upon parasympathetic stimulation. So there are two more names for the same thing. Constriction is also called as miosis, right? And dilatation is also called as mydriasis. The same names. Okay, so this is just to give an idea of the nerve supply of the structures. So cranial nerves, when you will read in anatomy, you will learn that all the functions that a particular cranial nerve has is governed by a distinct nucleus. If it is a mixed nerve, there will be some nuclei in the brainstem which will have sensory functions, some will have a motor functions. और अगर जैसे oculomotor nerve also carries parasympathetic fibers. So there is a specific nucleus here in the midbrain, the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. So these parasympathetic fibers, they traverse through the oculomotor nerve and they reach ciliary ganglion, from where they through the ciliary nerve they reach the constrictor pupillae muscle. Remember, parasympathetic में ganglion is always close to the effector organ. In contrast to this, you see the sympathetic. Sympathetic supply for this comes from the first superior cervical ganglion. So preganglionic neurons start from the first segment, thoracic segment. They form a ganglion in the neck, जो कि बहुत पास है. That is the rule for sympathetic system. Ganglion is close to the spinal cord, right? From where postganglionic neurons along the walls of the carotid, they finally reach the radial muscles of the iris. So this is the nerve supply of the structures. So we've already talked about this. Ciliary processes and ciliary muscle, both of them form the ciliary body. Ciliary muscle is a smooth muscle, circumferentially present, जिसमें suspensory ligaments are attached. Processes are responsible for formation, secretion of aqueous humor, which will come through the posterior chamber, come to the anterior to the pupil, and eventually drain through the junction here, where there is a venous route called as the Schlemm's canal. Okay, we've already seen. Now, what is the relationship between these two structures? So whenever the eye is at rest, that means you're not making any extra effort to focus your vision on a nearby object. So when the eye is at rest, the ciliary muscles are relaxed. Rest के साथ you correlate this word. So when the eye is at rest, the muscles are relaxed. Suspensory ligaments are taut. When the suspensory ligaments are taut, the lens assumes a more flatter configuration, less convex. Have a look at this picture. So this is the way the lens, all around the lens, the suspensory ligaments hold it under tension, right? Which in turn is connected to the ciliary muscle. This is one different view. The ciliary muscle will be actually circumferentially presented. So when the ciliary muscle is at rest, right? So they are forming a larger circle. Same logic. So suspensory ligaments may there will be an amount of tension. So if the suspensory ligaments are under tension, they will pull the ends of the lens all around. They will pull the lens from here all around. Lens, instead of being more convex, it will be slightly flatter or less convex. So you can. This is what happens when you try to look at a distant object. But the moment we try to focus our vision on a nearby object, say if I ask you to look at the tip of your nose, all of you look at the tip of your nose. So do you feel some amount of strain in the eyes? You feel, right? So that is because your ciliary muscles are contracting and medial rectus muscle also. It is contracting. So whenever we try to focus our vision on a nearby object, three things happen. Medial rectus muscles converge, forming convergence of the eyeballs. Pupils constrict, and the third thing that happens is lens becomes more convex. Lens अगर ज़्यादा convex नहीं हुआ, you will not be able to focus it on the retina, right? When the lens becomes more convex, the dioptric power of the lens will increase, so it can converge the rays better. But this happens when ciliary muscles, they become, when they contract, what will happen? They will become smaller. They will form a smaller circle, occupying a smaller area. So when they occupy a smaller area, suspensory ligaments में जो tension था वो कम हो जाएगा. They need to cover a smaller distance. So here the tension will be released. If the tension in the suspensory ligaments are released, तो लेंस के ऊपर जो चारों तरफ एक खिंचाव था, the pull will also be released. Lens will spring into a more convex configuration. This process is called as accommodation. increase in the curvature of the lens is called as accommodation, and it is a part of the near response. Okay. Now suppose, so we'll end here, right? Who will go to a forest? Suppose Rupjit has gone to a forest, right? Now there are two ways he may feel scared, right? There are two responses, two options. Which is the correct way of getting scared? Which one? The one above or one below? Second one. Madhurima says second one. Anyone who feels it is the first one? Which one is the correct way of getting scared? Second one. Why? Explain Guru. Intuition. Dilatation of the pupil. Correct. So the answer is you correlate. Whenever you are faced with a situation like this, body का कौन सा system होगा activate? Fight or flight response में it is sympathetic system which will be immediately activated. Sympathetic stimulation में what happens to the eyes? Radial muscles will be contracting, there will be dilatation of the pupil. So this one is scientifically wrong, this one is scientifically correct, right? So we'll stop here today. Next class we'll continue further with the structure and if time permits about optics also.